Imagine, if you will, working on a rice plantation in the low country, and every time you came to work, from springtime until September or October, and you were working in the mud and the muck, you were building dikes, you were weeding the rice paddies. You not only had to deal with mosquitoes, disease, and the like, along with just being a slave in the first place, but you had to deal with something that was in the water every time you came to work, and it wanted to eat you just as bad as you wanted to keep it from eating you. Welcome to Keeping History on Two Wheels. If you like this video, please hit the subscribe button. It's right over here. Don't forget to hit that bell so that you'll be notified whenever we do an upload, and we do one each and every week. Tidal creeks and rivers of the low country hide reminiscences of times long past. What simply looks like marshes from the roadside were at one point the agricultural windfall that built fortunes and empires. The rice plantations didn't just appear, and the land, even though proper for the growth, had to be laid out and constructed in a particular way in order to grow the grain in such a manner that was conducive to the mass harvest and deep financial gains. The success of the rice plantations culminated in the image of the South one sees in the movies and novels. White columned mansions and large fields of assorted agricultural products harvested by slaves, where the only danger for the low country African population, per the movies and the novels, were the plantation owners. Well, those were simply false. There was another, more silent stalker, one that lived in the very waters of those rice fields. Rice is primarily grown in the warm, wet conditions, and well, that's a perfect description of the low country. The coastal areas between the Carolinas, Georgia, and Florida are inundated with swamps, which in and of themselves make the area great for rice cultivation. However, you have to be able to control the amount and timing of the water. So that means that the swamps have to be cleared, and then rice paddies have to be constructed. This means men have to get into the swamp and clear it of trees. Then began the four-step construction process. Usually a 10-acre area is picked and then divided into 1-acre parcels. Then step 1 happens. Trees are removed and the embankment is built around the 1 acre. And a canal is then dug around the outside of the embankment. The changes in the land allow the swamp to be drained. Step 2 is when a quadrant, or 1/4 of the acre, is again surrounded by an earth dike, and what's called a trunk is then inserted into the dike. Steps 3 and 4 is usually when the process is repeated until the whole cleared area is completed and rice planted. The trunks allow the water to be removed between the paddies or totally out. They could even reverse the flow of water with the trunks at high tide. Even though the land changed, it didn't change enough to drive off the wildlife. The birds of all kinds that lived there when it was all swamp could still sustain itself with the new lay of the land. And as all ecosystems, each insect in an area has a predator, be it fish or fowl, and then on up the food chain. The Savannah National Wildlife Refuge is a prime example. What was once a thriving rice plantation is now a haven to all the species of insect and animals that was here when it was a swampy marsh. and then into its plantation days, and now as a federally protected wildlife area. You've seen me here before when I introduced the video about the life and times of Marlin Perkins. I'm lucky enough to live near this peaceful, beautiful refuge, and I frequent it often. And that brings me to the center of attraction here at the refuge. Whenever you have fish and fowl, hogs and deer, and finally add water, you always have the king of the low-country predators, the North American alligator. The slaves on the plantations had to contend with alligators from the day they arrived on the plantation until their last day on earth. When the plantations were clearing the swamps and constructing the patties, they always had to keep their eyes peeled for signs that the alligators were in the area, or that they had been. An alligator can stay underwater for 20 to 30 minutes easily, and up to 24 hours if necessary and conditions are right. So if they were in the area when work began and went under, then say somebody got a little too close, they could attack from seemingly nowhere. The alligator population was put on the endangered species list by the Endangered Species Act of 1973, but due to conservation efforts, it was removed in 1987. But the population when the plantations were being built had never been kept in check, meaning the population was quite high. If someone was attacked on the plantation, it was generally during the construction phases of 1 and 2, as this was when man was encroaching on the alligator's home turf. If they were attacked in the patties, it was generally because the alligator was moving from location to location in what's called traveling. If someone was attacked, their chances of survival were not good. If the alligator didn't finish the job, the infections from the bite most likely would. Even with medical care today, this is still the likely outcome. If you remember, a couple of weeks ago, I did an episode on the Gullah Nation people. As I stated then, the Gullah Nation community of today are the direct descendants of the slaves brought over from the West African regions such as Sierra Leone, Liberia, Guyana, Senegal. All of these people were experts at home for growing rice. The plantation owners kept their people here in the low country to help build and run the plantations. In the beginning, it was not uncommon for the plantation owner to work alongside of his slaves on the creation of the plantation. But as the profits from the low country's white gold began to roll in, the owner became more and more scarce in the fields, and many times from the plantation itself. The two things that didn't leave were the slaves and the alligators. Oftentimes, the only way to escape the plantations and head south to the safety of the Spanish-held St. Augustine area, where black people were free, was through the swamps and marshes surrounding the plantation. Swamps and marshes which were the home for the alligator. Today, through property donations and assorted acquisitions, the Savannah Wildlife Refuge extends far past what you see on the driving tour or hiking trails of what was once a vast plantation, and encompasses a total of 31,551 acres, covering 3 counties and 2 states. If you visit the refuge, you can see how the rice paddies were laid out. The refuge uses the same dike and trunk system to manage the property and now the wildlife as the plantation did to grow and harvest the rice. As many of you know, I'm a large supporter of the national, state, local, and private parks. So please, visit your local park today. If you like this video, please hit the subscribe button. It's right over here on the left. Don't forget to hit that bell so that you'll get a notification anytime we do an upload, and we do one each and every week. Remember, every trip starts with a step, and that step, well, it starts with you.